Buying tickets to sports and concerts can be complicated, but there is a better way to buy with SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to every type of live event. And right now, get $20 off your first purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code WINGO today.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
A week from today, the big man comes to town. It is 1 week from Christmas, and we are ready to roll. Good Monday morning. Welcome in to another edition of Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Delighted you are in the Santa Countdown with us. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Trey Wingo, Mike Golic Jr., and those watching on ESPN2 can certainly see that the big man is in the mood for the big man.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, Elf is playing all the time right now. I have the shirt that has Will Ferrell on it and the Elf suit that said, "Oh my God, Santa, I know him." Of course you do. It's a big week.
Genuine excitement.
It's a big week.
It is. Christmas is one of those holidays that's so much more about the lead up once you get past a certain age than it is the actual day. Because, you know, at the point that we're all at, seeing the faces of kids light up when they get that morning and get that special thing as a part of it. Right now, it's the build up. It's the lead up. It's the anticipation.
And Trey and I have gone through a lot more layers of it than you have,
yes,
by the way. And this was a tough week when I was single and you know, Chris and I were dating or getting, you know, engaged and coming up around Christmas then and doing that shopping. Yeah. You know, going out and shop. Always waited to the end.
Yes.
You know, there were times I went out on Christmas Eve. Trying to finish the shopping. Kind of the mode you're probably going to be in, Mike, at this point. And then you're right. You know, when you guys were young or Trey's kids were young, you know, that was the cool part.
Absolutely.
You know, when they're opening the presents, when you swear as a parent before you have kids, we're not going to get them too many things. We're not going to spoil the kids.
And then you
give them everything in the world.
100% the other way.
You watch the video of it and you're like, my God, did we get them enough stuff? You guys were almost bored opening because there were so many presents. It was ridiculous. And it was your mother's fault.
Yeah, listen, when it comes to all of that stuff and the way that you guys have spoiled your kids, my sister.
Yeah.
You guys just point the finger at each other. But I'm excited because I get to watch this happen for the first time for a lot of my friends. Kyle Rudolph, who we've had on this show and other show, has his two twin daughters that are both going to be, you know, having their first Christmas they can really remember.
That's cool. That's when it's cool.
You know, so it's excited for that. I have a lot of baby gifts to get.
So we are 1 week away from Christmas.
Yes, we are.
But the gift that keeps on giving is the National Football League's regular season. You know, this was the game, the Patriots at Pittsburgh, that I think everyone, when they saw the schedule come out, they were like, wow, that game is probably going to be for the AFC home field advantage, and it may be one of the most entertaining games of the year. And on every way, it absolutely delivered.
Yeah, it was. And so for the first thing we all think is we built it up too much. They're like, there's no way.
Nope.
No way it's going to live up to this hype. Not one shot at all. And then it does. I think the toughest moment in this is because these are two teams that obviously are going to be fighting for it for the end. And you really hope Antonio Brown is going to be okay. The leading receiver in the league, the best receiver in the league, Julio Jones, whatever it's going to be. And we'll get into it, but he has a partially torn calf. He's going to miss the rest of the regular season, hopefully be back by the playoffs. But that would be a shame. You know, it's a shame for any team to lose a big-time player, but that is a big-time player that this team, if you were going to move them to the Super Bowl, they need a guy like Antonio Brown. That was a tough loss there for them.
Well, that's just one of the layers of the story.
Yeah,
I mean,
so many.
Think about
so many.
We'll get into all of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. I mean, it looks like Antonio Brown will be back for the postseason. But again, that torn calf muscle on that play in the end zone where he couldn't hang on to the pass from Ben Roethlisberger. Speaking of plays where you couldn't hang on to the pass in the end zone, it is the thing that everybody's talking about. Did you have a problem with the way the rule was applied to Jesse James?
The rule was applied correctly, but our good buddy, we worked with for years here, Mark Schlereth.
Yep.
I think he had one of the best lines out there when he said he basically said that the rule. The rule is stupid, but I think they got it right as the stupid rule is written.
That's exactly correct.
I think that is probably the way to say it is they interpreted the rule correctly, but I think the rule is somewhat ridiculous. So they got it right, but I mean, will we ever get a true what is a catch rule written in the NFL? Because right now, it seems whatever the catch is for whatever the situation is, wherever you are on the field, it could be different.
I don't know if that applies to this situation. The more I've been thinking about it this morning, because I've been trying to workshop it through this. I know we were texting about this the other day.
Mm-hmm. Wait, did you just say you've been trying to workshop
it?
Just say you've been thinking about it?
No, I've been workshopping
what are you doing there?
Millennials.
What is that? Yeah.
Millennials.
What are you doing
It's
there?
an industry term.
Yeah, okay. For millennials.
Radio Trey is going to learn about workshopping.
I'm going to workshop this. I'm going to think about it. So you're thinking about it.
So I was workshopping this.
Okay.
You were thinking about it.
And what I came to was this. So if this catch happened on the 20-yard line and Jesse James went down to the ground and the ball jostled like this, would it be a catch?
No.
If he caught this ball in the end zone, went down, and the ball jostled when he hit the ground, would it be a catch?
No.
So why are we saying it's applied selectively? It's applied the same way it is everywhere else.
I haven't heard anybody say it's applied selectively. I think they think the rule stinks.
But why does the rule stink? If we know definitively what it is, when we're asking, we want to know what a catch is. Most of the cry I hear is we want common sense law on this, right?
Here's why. Do you have a follow-up point there? Or?
No, I'm asking a genuine question. Is what we're asking for is the sort of I know it when I see it law.
Here's where this comes into this particular play. Go back last week, the game-winning touchdown for the Carolina Panthers against the Minnesota Vikings. Jonathan Stewart takes the ball in a handoff, jumps over the pile, ball breaks the plane, ball pops out. But because the ball broke the plane, it's a touchdown. Now, in this scenario, Jesse James caught the ball. One knee was down, ball over the plane. But because the ball moved 1 millimeter to the left after it had crossed the plane going to the ground, it's not a touchdown. And that is the problem I have with the rule, because it's different for a receiver as it is for a runner.
And Mike Pereira answers that for you in a tweet. People are saying a runner breaking the plane causes the ball to become dead, which is true. But the receiver does not become a runner until he completes the process of the catch. Totally different.
And that's the problem. That's the problem. Okay, we go back to week 2 this year. Go look at the Eagles-Giants game. Sterling Shepard caught a pass in the end zone.
Right.
And not the one on the corner where he ducked it. The other way. He's on the left side of the end zone, catches it, takes 3 steps inbounds, and then is pushed out of bounds. He's 10 yards out of bounds, rolling over, and the ball comes out, not a catch.
Right.
That is patently ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
I agree. I think once you have maintained control of the ball and got your feet and become a running with the ball, in this case you're in the end zone, that it should be a catch and not have to go rolling out of bounds and sliding across the ground to see if you maintain a catch. But I don't know where they're going to change it, because then you're going to put it in the hands of the referee, right? If you're going to make it more of a gray line if you do that. Now it's going to be up to the official. I'm thinking, did he have it long enough? Instead of what the league wants is, we want a rule written that you can look at this play and say, this did not meet the rule, incomplete, rather than to say, well, did he take a couple of steps and then I know it's a few yards out of bounds and then he lost control. Rule says no catch, so it's no catch.
And I guess that's what I mean in this is we have that. Like, everyone was very clear last night, and like you said, the stupid rule, we at least know what was happening. And what do we always say about officiating in a game when you were playing is you learn very quickly early in the game how the officials are going to call it, and then you adjust. So if we know exactly what they're going to call, then in theory players can adjust and fit that, right? That's all you're looking for, is a set of rules and operational guidelines that you can work within. I feel like we're there now. If you want to tell me you want to revamp the whole process and clearly define what it is, I'm cool with that idea, but I'm not cool with what you talked about, which is the subjectivity of just saying, you know what, call it a catch when it looks like a catch.
Remember, because I know there are people saying, is it a catch in a bar in a flag football game, and using that. Well, then it depends in a bar. How many drinks did you have? Or in a flag football game, are you family or are you not? I mean, I'm using that as an example. Then it's like a ref in different games could look at it differently. I mean, this goes back again, people, to 2010, Calvin Johnson.
Yes.
This is where this was born. Calvin Johnson making a catch in the end zone and the ball in his hand on the ground and it comes loose and they rule it incomplete. My biggest thing, Trey, was what you just said.
Yeah.
If you can show the difference to me of why a running back can dive over and as soon as the ball crosses the goal line, plays over. Doesn't matter what happens to the ball. And I look at Jesse James and I look at the ball. He had control of the ball as it crossed the goal line.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, my common sense says control the ball, cross the plane, touchdown. So, but they're making, as Mike Pereira, I just read, is making the distinction. That's what I was looking for.
Well,
they've made
the distinction.
Right. So it's just a matter of how much you like it or not. And to your point, Mike, I agree with you because I don't want to put it back on what the ref thinks in that particular game. You don't want to do that. And let me tell you what, the refs don't want to do
Correct.
that. Yeah. The refs don't want it like that either. They know they can say, okay, we didn't write this rule, but we're just enforcing a rule. Don't blame the messenger when I'm making the incomplete, sign.
Because you know what happens when you take that out to the fullest extent and you let that law govern the land? You get the College Football Playoff Committee, and you get all of the complaints that people have had about that. Because I see it up here. Common sense says it's a catch. The way the rule is written says that it's not, and there's a gray area that can't be explained in words. That's what we had in the Alabama-Ohio State decision, where we had common sense says Alabama's the better football team of those two. But the way that all the rules were written around the committee says Ohio State and their body of work and their conference title and all these things that are supposed to matter should be in. And we advocated for a system that prioritized that subjective view of things. And that's what we get, is we still get a laundry list of complaints. And so all you do if you open this up is get a laundry list of different complaints.
Well, that's fine, but I think a lot of people would like to know what a catch is and have a little more clarity about why it's different. I understand why the rule says it's different, but I think most people see it the same way. He had possession, it crossed the plane. That should be the end of the play.
Well, and Mike Pereira is telling you the difference. Are you just not buying the difference?
No,
do you just not agree with the difference?
I agree that the rule was interpreted correctly. I just think it's a crappy rule.
Okay, so what? Yeah. All right. So,
but yeah, I know. I understand your point in this, right? Mike Pereira is basically bringing us to the why.
He is. So if you don't like the rule, I guess that's what I would say to everybody out there. What do you want as the rule? What do you do? How do you want to define it that is going to define it and not make it, kind of up to the referee that day on what you think? I don't like the bar strategy. Yeah. Is it a catch if you're sitting in a bar and you think it's a catch? As I said, you ask the guy in the corner, sitting on the corner of the bar, who's had 10 shots, or the guy at the other end who's had 1 shot, you might get a different answer.
So let's take the bar let's take the bar equation out of it. I think you and I agree on this point. The same standard should apply for what happens to the ball, whether it's a runner or a receiver crossing the plane.
I think I would like to go with that, but I don't. You know what's going to happen? There's going to be things thrown back at you as far as why it shouldn't be. But to be uniform, that was my first thought. Is if it's good for a runner, why can't it be good for a receiver? Jesse James had the ball when he crossed the goal line. Should that make it a dead play? But they're saying no because he didn't finish the catch.
To me, this just comes to, because all we need is one situation that kind of points the opposite. All you need is one of those plays where it's a little more bang-bang, because this one we feel in certain situations we felt have been a deliberate enough in the action that led up to the reach. What if next time it's just a catch and then he quickly falls and it falls out? Then all of a sudden, is it different? Is he still a runner then because he just has the ball?
Well, in Super Bowl 12, between the Cowboys and the Broncos, Roger Staubach threw like a 40-yard touchdown pass to Butch Johnson, who was the receiver. He caught the ball, rolled over into the end zone, and the ball popped out. It was a touchdown. Why? Because he had possession of the ball across the goal line. Right. So let's not pretend like this rule has been hard and fast in the NFL forever.
Right.
This has been a rule that's changed within the last decade.
It's Calvin Johnson.
That's exactly right.
2010.
So what is now is not what has always been.
Right, exactly.
And if you've been a fan of football for a long time, that's a thing a lot of people have a problem with. Mike Tomlin, by the way, talking about what's happening with there and how it happened to be overturned.
I don't have HD and all of that stuff, so, it's really irrelevant how I feel about it, to be honest with you. It's not going to change the outcome of the game. I'm not going to cry over spilt milk and all of that crap and talk about replay. I ain't doing it.
Now, I think he does have HD at the house, just not at the stadium.
I love him.
Tomlin's awesome.
I mean, I absolutely love that guy. So can you universally make it, if you have control of the ball when it crosses the goal line, it's a touchdown no matter what?
That makes sense to me.
And just leave. Can you just leave it at that?
You know what? I don't. The way I look at it is this: is Trey's right. The rule has changed, and in my mind, I would like to think it's changed for a reason. That we've had enough events come up.
Well, there you go, putting logic in an illogical situation.
Because the point you made, and Trey, your recall of past events and the specificity is truly incredible.
It is 10 minutes to Whopper. I'm an excellent driver.
It is gifted. But I would say is super. Very nice.
Rain Man. Very well.
Yeah, that was
very well
subtle
done.
but effective.
Yeah.
But with that, to the point about Super Bowl 12 is I'm sure if the internet had been around then, there would have been people that would have been outraged by that call and the fact that it was called a touchdown too.
No, they just knew that was the rule.
The bottom line is that I don't think that people were more understanding now versus then. I think there is just more exposure, and so you're never going to be right with the decision that you made. They're at least clearly defined in what they're doing. I think this is always going to be a conversation that leaves one side upset.
Golic and Wingo, presented by Upside.com, giving all business travelers the gift of a better travel experience this holiday season. Upside.com. And I'll tell you this, I don't think that's why the Steelers lost the game.
But before you go to that, can I ask one more thing on the rule? Because we're going to talk a lot about this.
Yes.
You want it to be universal.
It should apply the same to both situations.
So if you say he had possession of the ball when it crossed the goal line, it should be touchdown, right?
That would seem to make the most sense to me.
If we had that rule, all right, I'm trying to do is think of the next situation that's going to throw a wrench into it. So put that same catch 3 yards deep in the end zone. Catch or no catch?
Catch.
But he hit the ground. Now he's in the end zone. It's not about crossing the plane. He's in the end zone. He caught it and then bobbled it and it hit the ground.
But that's my point to the Sterling Shepard catch, or week 2. He caught it, took 2 steps, had possession of the football, then was pushed out of bounds and the ball was dropped. If you have possession of the ball and 2 feet down, to me that's a touchdown.
Okay.
In any scenario.
Okay.
In any scenario.
All right, but he was in the air and then got pushed down. I'm talking about this particular catch. Nobody touched Jesse James. He was on the ground himself. Yeah. He caught the ball and was on the ground, and say he's 3 yards deep in the end zone. Yes. In the end zone, caught the ball, and as he continues down on the ground, like Des Bryant, and loses the ball, is it a catch then?
I would say yes. To me, that would be the case.
So you're saying even if a receiver goes to the ground and it falls out, you would still like it to be a catch once he's had possession.
The ground can't cause a fumble. So why can the ground cause an incompletion?
But I'm just saying
there's no standard.
But so now if he goes to the ground and let's say when he's going to the ground, a defender has jostled the ball loose because he had control for a second and 2 feet down, it's still a touchdown and that defender's got no right to the ball?
That used to be the rule.
Yeah, I don't like that.
That used to be the rule.
I don't.
We talk about a league where defenders are hamstrung enough as is. Yeah. You're taking away one of the few tools they have, which is the ability to play the offensive player's hands when he goes up and try and jar the ball loose.
No, I have no problem with that. In this scenario, there was no defender around him.
Right.
All right. He caught I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah. The exact same catch, 3 yards in the end zone.
Yeah, that to me would be a touchdown.
Even though he didn't finish the catch. He was already in the end zone.
This finish the catch thing is something that we just sort of added on to the NFL in the last 7 or 8 years.
I understand that. That's why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds a little different than you caught the ball in the end zone and as you hit the ground, the ball goes flying away. I mean, I could see some people saying why is that a catch? Why would we say that would be a catch?
That's the next part that comes out of all of this is the immediate reminder in all those moments. It'd be great for the league because scoring would be up because the barrier for entry is super low then.
Did Megatron catch it against the Bears? Do you believe he caught it against the Bears, that play you talked about? I mean, no one was near him. He caught the ball, and as he was pushing his hand up to get up off the ground, the ball came out.
Here's the thing.
That's a touchdown to me.
Again, what you're doing is you're going to put it in the hands of the referee. And now you're going to say...
I'm trying to not put it in the hands of the referee.
You would be, because did he have it long enough? He was trying to get up.
Well, right now we have this thing called a football move.
Yeah,
you know?
I know.
So, I mean, it's there regardless. Either way, it's going to be there.
We've got human officials. It will always, no matter what rule we institute, there will be some measure of subjectivity within it. There's subjectivity in every penalty now, so it's unavoidable.
What I would like is a lot of people hated this and they don't know what a catch is. I'd like people to tell us what your definition of a catch is.
Well, put it on
at Golic and Wingo.
What should our definition?
What's a catch?
Yeah. And you know what? In all honesty, in this, as we look for solutions, the one group that I would love to have be able to define this, and we've heard this thrown out before, is a committee of former players, former receivers who come together and finally give us a definition, because that way, like we always hear about the CBA, you were a part of it and you told us what a catch is and what this is supposed to be. Have that group of guys in conjunction with officials and people come together and just define it once and for all so you feel like you have some role in it.
Let's have some defensive players too. I mean,
absolutely.
If you're asking a wide receiver. What do you mean? What do you mean? I bobbled it all the time and ran out of bounds. That's still a catch.
So let's be clear. Let's be clear about where we stand here. Number one, by the rule, they applied it correctly.
They applied it correctly.
We just don't like the rule.
You don't like the rule. So what's your new rule?
All right,
not you. I was rhetorical.
Put it out there. Golic and Wingo. By the way, here's another thing. We can get into this. I don't think that's why the Steelers lost.
Well,
the
there
game.
you go.
They had plenty of chances I mean, right before the touchdown drive to start that put the Patriots ahead, the ball was tipped at the line of scrimmage, and Sean Davis, it was right there in his hands. And, oh, by the way, there's no reason Ben Roethlisberger had to try and force that throw into Eli Rogers.
On the fake spike, well, we definitely have a lot to get into with that game. That was a great game, and you're right. It always comes down to 5, 6, 7 plays, not one play.
Yeah, the Steelers had more than enough opportunities to either send that game to overtime or win it outright, and they didn't. So everyone's looking at that play because of the controversy around it and the confusion about what is a catch and what isn't a catch. But don't kid yourself if you think that's the reason they lost the game. They had other opportunities, many of them, to seal that game.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. We roll on Golic and Wingo 1 week away from Santa's big day, where Santa Claus comes and fills every house with toys. Woo! We want to be clear on our position there.
Hella Santa.
Glad you're with us, Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. So we've talked a lot about the Patriots-Steelers game, and we'll do that more throughout the show.
Yep.
But there was another controversial finish in a game that happened basically on a rule.
Yep.
The Cowboys kept their playoff hopes alive, and the Raiders are essentially out of the postseason. Because late in that game, with the Cowboys up 3, Derek Carr in the final minute of the game on I think it was a third down play, trying to score the game-winning go-ahead touchdown. From the 8-yard line, he scrambles out to his right, dives for the pylon, and as he's diving for the pylon, the ball comes loose, rolls into the end zone, and goes out of bounds. Touchback, Cowboys gain possession, kneel down, and win the game. So the question then becomes, how do you interpret the touchback rule as opposed to what we've been talking about all along, which is what is a catch and what isn't a catch?
This one mystifies me a little bit because the defense, well, in this case, the defender did hit him as he was reaching and the ball came out, but nobody has possession of the ball. It goes out of the end zone, and somehow, now you would think I would like it because the defense gets it as a former defensive player, but I still have a tough time understanding that one. But I'll always say this. So if we don't like it, what should the rule be? And the first thing I brought up was, okay, if Derek Carr does that and doesn't get in, then you bring the ball, offense still gets it because nobody had possession of it, bring the ball back to the original line of scrimmage. But I don't know, Mike, what Pandora's box that opens up. Is if you know something like that's going to happen, wouldn't you be more apt to, would you throw it forward at one point? Or, we don't want the holy roller or anything like that from Kenny Stabler back in the day. But how would that change things if all of a sudden you made that the rule that it came back to the original line of scrimmage?
Yeah, as much as of an anarchist as I am, I understand that doing that, because if you fumble it out of bounds, it just stays right at the spot it goes out of bounds. If you fumble it forward now, we know that's against the rule
Comes
because
back
of that.
To the line of scrimmage,
this seems like one where you could cauterize it pretty easily in the moment here. Again, I look at it and say, just because it's this idea that he's trying to do something good and isn't rewarded for it in the body of game doesn't really sell to me, because most penalties in the NFL are born off the backs of guys trying to do something good and not being rewarded for it if we decided it's against the rule.
Well, that was just one of the controversial things in this game. The other one on the Cowboys' go-ahead field goal drive on a 4th and 1, Dak Prescott went for a sneak, and they had to bring out the chains, but that wasn't enough. Gene Steratore then brought out an index card to put between the chain link first down and the ball, and because Gene Steratore said the paper touched the ball, that was enough for them to give it a first down. And Raiders head coach Jack Del Rio wasn't really happy with how that went down.
I don't want to get fined, okay? I'm not happy with the way things were done on a lot of different situations throughout the night. They did the best they could. I had a different viewpoint. I saw error. It was pretty obvious. Never seen error like that and it somehow turned into a first down. There's error between the ball and the stick. That's your short. Okay? Goes the other way. Period.
He's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong, but there seems to be some and Steratore is basically saying, he was just doing this for
to confirm what his eyes had showed him.
What his eyes already showed him. It was kind of a weird back and forth that he was giving, but like Navarro Bowman said, he saw space between the card and the ball. Obviously, the referee, he basically put the card in, stood right up and signaled first down, like the paper hit the ball.
Right.
What I want to know is, why did he fold the index card in half? Now he doubled the width of the index card. Why would he fold it in half?
I'm surprised there's not a Reddit page already dedicated to the thickness of an index card that was now doubled by that move.
Yes,
How do
you
you
know there isn't?
How
do you know there
is
isn't?
very true. I will deep dive onto that one after the fact.
That was an interesting play, but again, he must have thought that the card touched the ball because again, he got up and immediately looked and signaled first down. There were those that say they saw space between the nose of the ball and the chain and that the index card didn't hit the ball. That was a weird scenario right there.
Look, it was crazy, and that's just one of them. I mean, the fact that we had two games come down to these kind of rules in two of the biggest marquee games of the entire weekend is pretty amazing. And basically that's how that sort of signified that the Cowboys keep their playoff hopes alive and then the controversial ending. Look, the NFL is the gift that keeps on giving because people can say, "Oh, we're down on the NFL." You know what? It was the most entertaining thing all Sunday. It's not even a question about it. Not even a question about it.
It really was, and sometimes we found that the search for clarity definitely breeds more murky results than anything else.
By the way, as our researcher Brett, who's getting tons of airtime today,
Sure
Team
is.
Brett, we love you, big guy, points out it's the biggest index card controversy since the Oscars Best Picture from last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I have to pull a bad man
and
for that
since
one.
Miss America before that.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
That's a good call.
What did Steve Harvey say? I made it.
Oh,
what
yeah.
was the line?
I forget.
I forget what the line was.
I forget what it was. As he was memed into existence. It's been a rough stretch for index cards.
Really has.
Getting a bad rap.
And back to the rules, I think I have more of a problem with the ball fumbling out of the end zone than I do with the written catch rule.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night. No doubt about it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Life happens. With ADT, you can feel safe with an ADT starter kit professionally installed for only $49. Call today and install an ADT starter kit that includes security panel, keypad, key fob, entry and motion sensors, and for a limited time, get a camera included and installed at no additional cost. That's a $449 value installed for just $49.
Requires 36-month monitoring contract, QSB, and EasyPay. Activation and early term fees may apply. Certain marks excluded. License available at ADT.com, Florida EF001121, Louisiana F1639.
Our next guest, Ian Begley, the ESPN Knicks reporter. Obviously, he's worked for the Daily News, has covered every team in New York for many, many years, talking, of course, about the return of Carmelo Anthony Saturday night. Ian, thanks for being with us. So the Knicks beat the Thunder in Melo's return. What was your take on how the Knicks as an organization handled Melo's return?
I thought they did a very nice job with the tribute video during intros. I thought it was a very classy move by the organization. Carmelo Anthony certainly appreciated it. He said he didn't expect it, but he said that kind of thing goes a long way with him. He thanked team president Steve Mills and GM Scott Perry for handling it the way that they did. And I just wonder if or how things would have been different if Phil Jackson was still running the team at this point. Does Carmelo get that kind of tribute when he comes back here? Carmelo was actually asked that question after the game, and he said, listen, I'm moving on from that situation. I try not to think about it. But the look on his face told you that he was kind of wondering the same thing.
You know, you said in the beginning of that answer that he didn't expect it. What did he expect?
I'm not sure because, we had reported that there was going to be a tribute. So maybe that was just him giving a kind of a coy answer, which he's apt to do. He's been apt to do with his dealings with the media. But maybe he just expected a regular introduction and then the fans reacting the way they would react. I'm really not sure. I think that he probably should have expected some kind of tribute video, given who he was dealing with this regime and this front office. But he did say he was caught off guard. He called it a bittersweet moment because what it did is it kind of triggered his thoughts to go to places where he kind of thought about, hey, I didn't deliver what I wanted to deliver in New York as far as the success that I wanted to bring to this franchise. We didn't get close to winning a title the way that I had hoped we did, and he said it was a little bit of an emotional moment there right before the game.
Yeah, ESPN's Knicks reporter Ian Begley joins us on Golic and Wingo. So, I mean, it was exactly, I think, what you'd want if you're a Knicks fan. You get the tribute, you boo, and then you get the win. So
yeah.
if you're the Knicks fan, you got your moment to honor Melo, then you boo him as you do when he touches the ball, and then you come away with the win. You know, and Melo's time in New York is kind of interesting, right, Ian? I mean, look, he did a lot for the fans, a lot for the game, and a lot for the Knicks, but it never quite meshed. So, 6.5 years, I think they made the playoffs 3 times. How would you look back at his sort of tenure with the Knicks?
I think overall disappointing, but I think you can't really paint it in kind of a black and white picture where you blame Melo for everything that went wrong with what happened with the Knicks, or you blame management for everything that went wrong with what happened with the Knicks during his tenure, because I think there are a combination of factors at play here that led to their lack of success. Phil Jackson and the previous regime, Donnie Walsh and then Glenn Grunwald, didn't do a great job surrounding Carmelo with enough talent to lead, to give him that supporting cast that so many other superstars in the NBA had to bring the Knicks to those greater heights that they were hoping for. But then on the other hand, the way Carmelo played, you can make an argument that he didn't do enough to elevate that cast that was put around him, which a lot of great players in the NBA do. So I think there's blame to go around, but a lot of people in this town, they want to look at Carmelo and see him as the reason for everything that's gone wrong for this team in the last 6.5 years. But I just don't see it that way. I think you put some blame on management, you put some blame on Carmelo, but ultimately I do think that the tenure was a disappointment here in New York.
But look at, I guess, coming out through the other end here. I mean, Amari Stoudemire is thought to be a big money guy there and to help. Obviously, Carmelo, Phil Jackson's brought in to be Phil Jackson and have all the free agents flock to New York, which obviously was a horrible failure from that standpoint of it. And here you are with none of those guys there anymore, and a team that's sitting 16-13 and 14-5 at home this year, and you have one of the great stars in the league in Porzingis. So where this team is now, after all of that money spent, big names, here you are with none of the big money or the big names, and a team that's doing pretty well.
Yeah, Mike, for the first time in a long time, I think it is safe for the Knicks fan to see a light at the end of what has been a long, dark tunnel here in New York because of the reasons that you spelled out. You have Kristaps Porzingis here, and he looks to be a player that you can build around, looks to be a cornerstone of a franchise. And you have Frank Ntilikina, a young point guard that the Knicks drafted with the 8th pick in the draft this year, and he's shown promise. He's shown a lot of progress from day one to now. He looks to be a guy who can, at the very least, defend at an elite level at the point guard position, which is one of the most important positions in this league. So there are young cornerstones that this franchise has. And again, for the first time in a long time, this team has all of its first-round draft picks going forward. So Steve Mills, Scott Perry, they have the opportunity here to get things right, to build things the right way around Porzingis and this young core. And listen, Phil Jackson did a lot wrong during his tenure in New York. He didn't trade well. He publicly alienated some of his players. He didn't do a good job selling his players and his coaches on the way he wanted to play the game. But what he did do well was draft well, because we have Porzingis here. We have Ntilikina here, a kid who, again, through 1/3 of the first season of his NBA career, looks pretty good. But you got to give Phil Jackson some credit there, because these pieces are what are giving Knicks fans hope at this point.
I'm not so sure how much are people going to be wanting to give Phil credit, but you're right. I mean, he is over the back end going forward. It might be better because of some of the things he did. Now, we mentioned Porzingis, Ian, as he joins us, Ian Begley on Golic and Wingo. He didn't play Saturday because of the knee. What's his status going forward?
And I think the concern here from a Knicks standpoint is Kristaps Porzingis used words like instability, and he talked about his knee buckling the Thursday when this injury happened against Brooklyn. So the Knicks are taking a cautious approach here. I was told, Adrian Wojnarowski and I were told the day after this injury that Porzingis' knee was feeling better and that there was no need for any significant tests. And that, to me, told me that this knee injury wasn't that significant. So I think the Knicks are just being cautious here. I wouldn't be surprised if Porzingis didn't play today against Charlotte. I wouldn't be totally stunned if they held him out for the next game on Thursday against Boston. But I think Porzingis will definitely be on the court for that Christmas Day game against Philadelphia. I think it's just a matter of the doctors and Porzingis wanting to be 100% comfortable that when he goes out there, he's not at risk of doing some significant damage to the knee, because that's the last thing this franchise could put at risk right now.
All right, Ian, we appreciate the time. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, gentlemen. Take care.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
It was all sort of one big, giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. Phone guest, Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Very underrated Christmas song we were just playing, right? I like that one.
There are not many Christmas songs that I will hear that I'll say, you know what, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Just because I love Christmas so much that
you're wearing a T-shirt that says, "Oh my G, Santa, I know."
Oh my
him.
God, Santa, I know him.
Yeah,
and I do.
From Elf.
Yeah.
Very
Santa's
underrated
real.
Christmas movie, by the way.
I think it's one of the best.
Oh my goodness, it's hilarious.
Best.
Yeah. So we're a week away. Week away from Santa coming.
From the big guy.
And you know what? The NFL played Santa this week with a lot of gifts for us to talk about at a crazy week 15. And Ryan Clark is here in studio to give us the straight talk about a lot of that. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. First of all, how are you?
I'm doing well.
I just want to make sure you're okay.
Why would I be okay?
After what happened at Heinz Field on Sunday, I thought you might be a little upset.
No, not at all. Listen, when you get to this job, you root for people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I definitely root for, Coach Tomlin and, Ramon Foster and the different guys, William Gay that I knew on the team. But I watch the games like everybody else now, and I want to see good football games. I definitely want to see it turn out different for Ben, both personally and professionally for him. But it was an excellent game, man. And it lived up to the billing. So many times, especially in the NFL, when you compare it to college football, the excitement doesn't necessarily match the hype. And I think yesterday did.
As we've been talking earlier, when I've talked about what the players will watch in film today, they'll all see there were other opportunities to get the job done. That's what players find out in the film session, and there were. But we know so much being made of the Jesse James play. So just your thoughts on the play, the ruling, the overturn, and the whole deal.
Exact 100% right application of a terrible rule.
Thank you. Yeah. There you go. You're with us then.
It is 100% the way it's supposed to be called. I was against it until I watched it in slow-mo enough times to see his elbow hit the ground and the ball start to shift. And if you're going to go by the letter of the rule, which I think is the reason the NFL keeps it this way, because people like, you and I and Trey, we can look at the rule and say, well, if that's the rule, this is the correct application of it.
And I think that's the issue everybody has. There's always going to be the fans that say they were robbed. Mm-hmm. They got it right. Whether you agree with the rule,
right,
the call was correct. The question that I've always had, Ryan, and Mike and I have talked about this morning with everybody, is why is it different for a receiver as opposed to a runner? Mm-hmm. Because clearly he had possession of the ball when it crossed the plane. If you're a running back, as just last week, Jonathan Stewart against the Minnesota Vikings jumps over the pile with possession. As soon as the ball comes out, it doesn't matter because the ball broke the plane. So do you think the rule needs to be adapted? Because this, again, people forget, this has not always been the rule. This came in 2010, I believe it was.
Yeah, Calvin Johnson. Yeah. The Calvin Johnson play. Before I let you answer, Ryan, this is what you brought up, Trey. Right. Mike Pereira, former head of officials, this is what he tweeted about that exact thing. People are saying a runner breaking the plane causes the ball to become dead, which is true. But the receiver does not become a runner until he completes the process of the catch. Totally different, Ryan.
No, I agree with that explanation. Not because I think it's the right thing, because I think it's dumb, but because this is the way it's been ruled. And when you look at the rule, not only in this game, but in many others, you are used to seeing this, and we've seen this before. And absolutely, if you're a fan, if you're someone at home watching, You see control of a catch. You see control of the football. He reaches over. You expect the play to be dead. But we know from watching other plays, watching other catches, that is not the way it works with a pass catcher. And so until this catch is complete, until he is now deemed a runner, he has to finish through the ground. And listen, I was as upset, and I thought it was just as stupid as everyone else did, because we're looking with our eyes and we're using common sense and logic when we watch it. But by the black and white letter of the law, they got it right.
So let me, because the one thing I don't like to do is just say, I don't like the rule. Somebody got it wrong. The rule is bad. I need an option then of what a rule should be. And I know you were talking about the bar rule, right, guys, in a bar. And the reason I debunked that, in at least my opinion, by saying
how many drinks in
one guy you're asking may have had 10 shots, another guy you're asking
that's a catch for
that's
sure.
A catch.
Meaning
he caught it.
Meaning that if it was by that, then it would just be the ref's interpretation, right. And we might get different decisions for different games. So you don't like the rule. Trey doesn't like the rule. It was interpreted like it was written. How would you like the rule to read? What should it be?
Well, I had the, I guess, unfortunate or fortunate opportunity to be in the competition committee meetings when this was hot. And we spent the hour on it. And this was the same year they brought in all these former receivers to talk about what a catch was.
Yeah, they wouldn't shade that too much, would they?
Yeah, exactly.
A touch in our hand, it was a catch.
Right. What would complete the catch? And we sat in there, and this ended up being the route it went and the way they decided to keep the rule, because I think it's the easiest to rule on. I think it's the easiest way to take out opinion and subjectivity and say, you know what? This is the actual letter of the law. If you see every former referee, every director of referees who tweeted about this or who answered this, they all answered it exactly the same way. And I think that's what's important to the NFL, that the people who make the decisions can answer it the same way. Be darned with whatever we think, but this is the way the rule.
But what if they gave you the scepter? What if they said you're making the rule?
By the way, we have given you the scepter.
We have. So you now have the scepter.
I've had the scepter. I had the scepter in this competition committee meeting, and had I had an answer, maybe we would still have this dumb rule. Like, honestly, you talk about it, and I would have ruled that a catch, right? I would have ruled that a catch.
Based on what?
Based on the fact that I felt like he makes a football move. I feel like when you change direction in any manner, obviously his feet couldn't be on the ground, right. But when you catch the ball going to your left and you're able to change direction to move forward on the field, to me, that is a football move. The Dez Bryant reach was a football move to me. And so I think if you want to change the catch rule, you also have to change what is a football move, which now goes into guys on bang plays, whether it's incomplete or fumble or catch and fumble. And so I think all those things would have to go together. But to me, if you can change direction, now this also is a player who felt like if a guy is ducking, he's not defensive. Right? If a guy has decided to turn his shoulder to me and try to ball up and protect himself, he is no longer defenseless. And so those are things that I and the NFL disagree on.
All right, Ryan Clark here with us in studio. I want to be clear about a couple of things. You read Mike Pereira's tweet, and he's absolutely right. But that's as it is now. Right. People need to understand that's not the way it's always been.
Exactly.
Before that competition committee, it was completely different. And I brought up a very famous instance from Super Bowl 12, which is way out of people's memories, but
I remember that. Yeah, I think I was there, Trey.
Yeah, sure you were. Butch Johnson it was in New Orleans. It was at the Superdome. Anyway, he made the long catch, and he had possession of the ball over the goal line, and then he dropped it, but it was a touchdown because he had possession over the goal line. And this is not the only time I've been on this rule all year long. If you follow me on Twitter at all, you know week 2, Sterling Shepard against the Eagles in Philadelphia caught a pass in the end zone with possession, took 3 steps, not 1, not 2, took 3 steps, then was pushed out of bounds, and 10 yards out of bounds, he rolled over and the ball came out, and they said it's not a catch. That is patently ridiculous. So to me, I'd like to see the consistency be when a runner breaks the plane and a receiver breaks the plane. And what Mike Pereira tweeted is absolutely right by the rule, but that's not the way it's always been, and there should be some consistency in how you break that plane. Give you an example. Tyrod Taylor's running touchdown on Sunday. None of his body was ever in the end zone. All he did was stick the ball over the pylon as his body ran outside the pylon, but that's all it took for it to be a touchdown. And I think the maddening part for fans is there should be a universal application of what happens when a ball breaks the plane.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that at all. But then we'll get into the discussion and we'll have the arguments of when guys catch the balls for first down and it shifts in his hand. And so,
but that, that's
right.
So what are we doing?
We will always argue, but I agree with Trey in this, that the ball breaks the plane. If that's going to be our rule, then let that be our rule. But what Mike Pereira is saying, at least by this letter of the law, is that was never a catch.
Yes. Right. That's what he's saying. And by letter of the law, he wasn't. So I guess that's what would, unless we're going to just continue with the gray area, you would have to make it special for the end zone. Because just imagine the same catch on a 4th and 4 and it was for 5 yards or to go out of bounds, so it would just be for the end zone.
It should be an end zone only rule because it's a different rule. I mean, if you're in the field of play as a runner and you do that, it's a fumble. So it is a different rule for running, so it should be a different rule for receiving, right? Doesn't that seem to make the most sense?
Well, no, it makes sense, but when did they ever have to make sense?
Well, that is a fair point. That's on me.
I think
that's on me.
Trey, you think it way too logically, bro.
I think to them, they are just trying to get a rule that covers everything.
Yes.
It covers every catch. Makes it, because a lot of people saying, I don't know what a catch is. Well, I mean, in all honesty, they're telling you what a catch is. What it is you don't agree with what they're saying a catch is. They're spelling it out, what a catch is. They're spelling it out perfectly for you, and they interpreted it correctly. We just don't happen to agree.
Speaking of stupid rules, right? I think the fumble touchback rule is the dumbest rule.
We put that one on there as well.
I think it's worse than how we don't like the catch thing. I think that one's worse.
That is the stupidest rule ever.
Well, we put that up on the Twitter feed. What rule would you like to see changed more?
My bad, I was in the barbershop.
There you go. No, it's all good. And by the way,
we watch you guys on mute in the barbershop.
The catch rule is running away with it.
The catch rule is running away with it.
77% catch rule, 23% the touchback.
I can't stand that touch. Jeff Saturday was in here actually defending the defense, saying, hey, all the rules go to the offense. I'm glad there's a rule that kind of benefits the defense, even though they're not doing a whole lot for it.
Hey, I'm on the side of not being stupid.
I hate that rule.
Yeah, I don't care what side of the ball you play.
Okay, along those lines of not being stupid, let's be clear, and I said this earlier on the show, that play is not why the Steelers lost that game.
No, you might want to double Gronk at some point.
You might want to double Gronk. You also might want to not force it on a 3rd and goal when the field goal time. Look, they had two plays. They had 2 plays after that to win the game, and then all you had to do was kick a field goal to send in it overtime. Or Sean Davis makes the interception. So
his arms were short.
That's correct. It was behind him a little bit. Or double Gronk, as you said, when he's lined up for the fade and the 2-point conversion. Because in that case, if you don't get the 2-point conversion, Juju's play leads to a game-winning field goal.
You know what's crazy is because this call is so controversial and that type of play has been so controversial, we're forgetting the greatness of Gronk. I mean, and we're not getting an opportunity to talk about it. Look at the New England Patriots team that played Monday night against the Miami Dolphins. And the Miami Dolphins said, you know what? We're going to press you. We're going to play man-to-man, and we're going to make these guys beat us. No one could beat them. There was no one that could get open. And you saw last night, time and time again, the Pittsburgh Steelers said, we are going to go with a different philosophy. We're not going to fire zone you. We're not going to zone you. We're not going to allow Tom Brady to pick us apart because he can find the holes. We're going to play press man with a deep safety, and you have to beat us. And there was only one guy on the entire New England Patriots roster that could beat man-to-man, and he did it consistently, and that was Rob Gronkowski.
Just so people understand, because that is something Tony Romo alluded to in the telecast. That is the way Steelers have played defense forever. Butler now the DC, Dick LeBeau for all those years. How difficult is it for a team to do something that is completely the opposite of what they always do?
2010, which is the only time I've actually beat Tom Brady, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
In 2010, we had some young DBs, Cortez, Allen, we had Curtis Brown, and so we decided to throw everything out the window, and we played Rover Man with Troy in the middle, me in the deep safety, and we played 2-man the entire game. We allowed James Harrison and Lamar Woodley to rush. And I believe we won that game 24-10. And that day we changed everything we had ever been, but we had the people. That was the first time we felt like we had the cornerbacks across the board to match up in that way. Cortez was about 6'2", and we actually put him on a young Rob Gronkowski. At the time, they also had Aaron Hernandez, and we won that game. And I think they went back to that philosophy. And it's not necessarily difficult to change your mindset to do it, but it is difficult when you don't actually have the people. And Sean Davis is a guy who's played corner at Maryland. He played nickel. He also played free safety, and he had the skills. But Rob Gronkowski, and, you know, there are going to be some arguments, obviously, for guys like Tony Gonzalez and different guys. I think he's the best all-around tight end to have played football in this game, and you couldn't stop him yesterday.
Yeah, the more he can stay healthy and be on the field and show that, the more he's going to try and cement himself to that. I look forward to these two teams hopefully playing in the playoffs, and it will be interesting what game plan and X's and O adjustment you see from the game yesterday to the possibility of the playoff game. Let's move on. The Philadelphia Eagles get a win over the Giants, and now they have at least a bye in the first round. Yes. So now but they want it all to run through Philly. So as you look at Philly going forward, do you have more concerns over Nick Foles? The fact that listen, there you go, Nick Foles at the defense. That's where I was going to go. I mean that's the defense. Nick Foles. I know we can't expect 4 touchdown passes every time like he did, so that'll even off. But man, that defense, they got to shore it up.
So you go back to the Seattle game, Los Angeles Ram game. Now this game against the New York Giants. Three straight. A defense I was worried about early on in the season. That totally surprised me. They were good outside the numbers at the cornerback position. They were able to rush the passer, create turnovers. And I was like, okay, if this defense continues to play this way, this team is the favorite to represent the NFC. And now we've seen them decline. We've seen them take steps back. And when you get into the playoffs and you're going to be playing teams like the Carolina Panthers who can defend, and you're going to play teams like the Minnesota Vikings who can really defend, Nick Foles isn't going to throw 4 touchdowns, as you alluded to. You're going to have to stop people. And if they continue playing the way they are, I don't think they can stop people enough to not only get to the NFC Championship at home, I don't think they win the division round playoff game either.
Well, you're right. Think of those deep New Orleans, Carolina, Minnesota, the defenses, the pass rush of the Rams.
Minnesota is a really, really good football team. By the way, we pulled the numbers, and I thought it was fascinating because we looked at Nick Foles' day yesterday. He was 24-38. 237 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. The team converted 46% of their third downs. So we said, let's run just a generic average Carson Wentz game. 20-34, 253 yards, 2.5 touchdowns, conversion on 45% of the third downs. So essentially, Nick Foles plugged in and played exactly like Carson Wentz. I mean, for that game, I granted it was against the Giants, and I get it, but you could not have asked for a better outing from Nick Foles. The concern, as you guys said, was the defense. And can that be fixed going into the postseason?
Yeah, you look at this game, if not for 2 blocks on special teams, you're in trouble. You know, the Eli Manning-led great New York Giants, which are no more, beat you. And so you can't – this is one of those days, and Golic, you know this, that you go in to watch the film as a defense and you lost. Right?
Yeah.
You don't talk about this game as a W. You are treated, you are talked to, you watch it with the same sadness as if you caught an L.
Oh,
that's how you feel.
You fear these film sessions. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
I'm sorry. You mentioned the blocks. Just want to throw this in here real quick. The Eagles blocked a field goal,
and a
point after, and a punt.
Yep.
According to the Elias Sports Bureau, that's the first time since the Bills did that in November of 24th, 1991, that we've had 3 blocks. And that's the reason they won the game.
Yeah.
Special teams won them this game.
And you're right. That defense, they're in for a tough film session today. You know, we look at the NFC playoffs, and, you know, Philadelphia, New Orleans, not used to them being in there. Minnesota, not used to that record of 11-3. The Rams and what they're doing. A team we always gave the benefit of the doubt to had been Seattle. Great defense. Superman is a quarterback. So they just get absolutely smoked yesterday by the Rams. Are they
bad.
What's that?
It looked bad.
It looked horrible. So have they lost the old benefit of the doubt? Well, Russell Wilson will do spectacular things in that defense. You know, we'll still be able to pull through. It seems like we've moved past that one.
You know, the most unfortunate thing is you almost, if it wasn't these dudes, you use a very bad 4-letter word when it comes to talking about athletes. And it starts with a Q.
Yep.
Right. If it wasn't Earl Thomas and Bobby Wagner and Michael Bennett, people we really respect as defensive players, we'd say it looked like they quit. The most unfortunate thing is Earl Thomas says something about Bobby Wagner playing injured and saying that there are guys who were backups who could have played better. Bobby Wagner tweets about Earl Thomas and he says, "Hey, keep my name out your mouth, E." You know what I mean? Don't be
Let's not go there, right? That's basically what they're saying.
Yeah, I don't like that part. And we've seen Seattle fight on the sideline.
Yes, we have.
And I've had arguments with coaches and other players on the sideline.
One thing in the heat of the game.
Right. Casey Hampton legitimately cussed us out every time there was a pass over 5 yards. He was the most.
Because he didn't want to run more than 5 yards.
And he was so big, you just said, okay, we'll try and do better next time.
He would just complain constantly. I used to be like, Case, they gonna complete a pass, bro. Like you just stand up in there. Like, we have to run around back here, bro. Just relax.
Wait a minute,
man.
you're ripping D lineman now? Hold on.
No, it was Casey though.
Okay.
He really.
Did you jump in his face on the sideline?
No.
Do you remember how big Casey
Hey,
was?
Oh, he's a monster.
He has his own moon.
Yeah.
I was tough, not stupid. You know what I mean?
There is a difference.
There's a difference, bro.
But to your point, going public with that, I don't and that's a lot of people look at Pete Carroll, says he runs a kind of a freewheeling team, let the players be themselves. During the heat of the game is one thing. Out in Twitter world and out public, I can't stand.
Well, and I think the other piece that bothers me is such a departure from what we've always known of them. The brotherhood, speaking of each other not as teammates and players, but as family. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing about family. We can fight all the time, but we're not going to let anybody else know what's going on in our house, and you can't come into it.
Okay, so the question then becomes, in that game in Seattle, did it tell you more about the Rams or more about the Seahawks?
The Rams still. Because this is a Rams team that this is the Ram teams that came in believing they're better than the Seattle Seahawks. And even though they were down and, Legion of Boom is missing Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman, they didn't go in and say, okay, we're going to win this game.
Right.
They said we're going to dominate this game. And I watched Aaron Donald absolutely abuse people's children. Like, there was people that's mamas were at that game.
Can I tell you something?
That took off their jerseys.
Yeah. People just don't understand
how good
that guy is. I mean, he may be better at his position, and because of the position, you don't get the headlines. You don't see all that.
I know where you're going with this.
He may be better at his position than anybody else is at their position in the game of football.
He's going to sign such a great deal.
He's going to break all the banks.
Oh my gosh, and deservedly so, man.
Paid.
Yep. Man, he's going to have a billboard in L.A. if he doesn't have one already. But when he's going to have whatever he wants. This is a dude I used to walk by, though, when he was in college, and I was like, I was like, this the kid.
He's not physically imposing at all.
This the kid nobody could block.
He's under 300 pounds. He's just about 6'1".
Yeah,
it's unbelievable leverage. His leverage is ridiculous, and that leverage is going to get him that contract.
My God.
They're going to wish they had signed him before the season started.
Absolutely.
I go back to my son Mike when he was the right guard at Notre Dame the year they went to the title. That senior year, he played K'Wan Short at Purdue. He played against Aaron Donald at Pitt and Leonard Williams at USC.
Great year.
I mean,
how'd that work out?
Some D linemen.
Real
coming
fun.
out. Wow.
Yeah.
Really impressive.
So, again, just appreciate how, you're never going to look at him like a quarterback or a wide receiver or any of that, but just understand no one is dominating their position better than Aaron Donald is right now, and he's going to break the bank.
He's also not a nice man on the field.
He got the right attitude you want.
He got
the streak you want when you cross that sideline and go over into the field. RC, thanks for being with us.
Thank you guys,
NFL
man.
Live today, right?
Yes,
Sunday
sir.
best. We're going to get a Cam Newton Fez appearance for a second straight week.
Hey, like you said, it's the brimless hat.
It's certainly something.
Yes,
As Tim likes to say, it's not an outfit, it's a costume.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
707 days after his last NFL snap in the 2015 wild card round against Seattle, Teddy Bridgewater, in a blowout win that the Vikings had over the Cincinnati Bengals, 34-0 at the time, and Teddy Bridgewater made his return to the field. It was unbelievable and was a very emotional moment.
Yeah, it was It was cool to see. I mean, again, let's not start thinking about any kind of quarterback controversy. I mean, we've been kind of getting on Mike Zimmer the last few weeks of why he wouldn't just say Case Keenum is the starter for the rest of the year.
And by the way, Case is the starter next week. Let's be clear about that.
I mean, let's not get crazy on that one at all. He will be, but Case Keenum, by the way, went 20 of 23 for 236 yards with no picks.
Is that good?
I mean, he's just with a couple of touchdowns. So, let's end that. But that was good to see, and because all we did was hear about how we've heard about people getting hurt before, but outside of a head injury or a back injury, it's normally you blew out a knee, but we've had a couple. That one, obviously, Teddy Bridgewater a couple of years ago, the Zach Miller one, where if you saw the video of Zach yesterday walking at the facility after the thought that he may have lost his leg with that injury on a touchdown catch with the Bears, but having Teddy come back and being able to see him go back on the field, and just from what we heard of how bad that injury was, the ambulance had to get him to the hospital, kind of in the era of the Zach Miller, so he wasn't going to lose that leg. Just to have him come back and play again was fantastic. First pass, unfortunately, was an interception off a tip ball.
Right.
I mean, but nobody really cared about that. It was the fact that he's been the backup. He's been on the field. He had been one play away from going in and playing for the last couple of weeks. But to see him actually get on the field was a very cool thing.
Yeah, it was a game against Washington where he made his return to the active roster, and they had the shot of him on the sidelines just breaking down because he thought he might never be back in this spot.
Right.
And again, you're exactly right. Had that emergency unit not been called, and I remember doing NFL Live that day, and when we heard they're bringing an emergency ambulance, because normally you can treat almost anything at the facility, any time of normal injury that happens. But remember, it was a non-contact thing. That leg and that knee just gave way. Mm-hmm. So had they not astutely got that thing there and quickly got it there, you're right, he could have lost the leg. And then to see him come back and show the emotions when he was just in a uniform, and then to see him on the field, the place went nuts. Yeah. It was amazing. Everybody in that stadium was going crazy. The sound, all his teammates were clapping on the sideline just to see him in the game. And after the game, here's what Bridgewater said it felt like to finally be in a game again.
It was great. It was even more. It was even better seeing Case leading the chant. Case is an awesome guy, and to see him standing behind me, it was just amazing.
It really was, and it sets up a really unique situation.
Yes, it does.
Because all three of the Vikings quarterbacks that they have outside of their backup now, Sam Bradford, Case Keenum, Teddy Bridgewater, all three of them their contracts.
Yeah, and I said this before, and I'll say it again. I wouldn't be bringing Sam Bradford back.
No, I think Sam is moving on.
I just don't trust he can play for me when he's missing games. I'm not being hit just because there's soreness there. I'm not putting anything into that. So to me, it's Case Keenum and Bridgewater. And you know what? Not a bad problem to have.
No.
When you like where Bridgewater was, beloved by his teammates, and now he's got a heck of a lot of rust to kick off if he's going to get back on the field. But Case Keenum's making a pretty nice case for himself. No pun intended.
I was about to say, well done there, wordsmith.
I should be on the field. And if I'm not going to be on this field starting, then I should be on another field starting somewhere with what he's doing. I mean, life is about, and it's not just sports, life's about opportunity. When for whatever reason you get your shot to do something, how do you perform? What goes on? What can you make of it? Are you ready enough for the situation that when it's for you, how do you respond? And Case Keenum has been fantastic, so kudos to him, because you never know when in his life, in Case Keenum's life of sometimes starter, most time backup, you never know when your opportunity is going to rise. And you hear what a good guy he is. Jared Goff talks about when he was with the Rams, how much he helped Jared Goff, and now gets to lead the team in Minnesota. So an issue that they have, but a pleasant one, as long as Teddy can get back to what we all thought he was leading up to. Again, he hadn't achieved that, boy, he's a great quarterback status, but a lot of people thought he was on the way to being a really good leader, making good decisions, and ready to take the next step. And now he's obviously taken a couple steps back.
Look, the Vikings have won their division. They still have a chance for a first-round bye. There's a lot of positive things going for them, but it is something that they're going to talk about. They don't want to talk about it now, but they're going to have a really tough decision in the offseason because, you think that the ceiling may be higher for Teddy Bridgewater. But the ceiling that Case Keenum is putting out there right now, with this team, with this coaching system, and with those receivers, it's kind of hard to look away from that, okay? His numbers in 2017, he's completing 68% of his throws, 20 touchdowns against only 7 interceptions, a QBR of 73 out of 100, a passer rating of 99. You don't just throw that away.
So what do you do?
I don't know the answer to that right now.
So if Case takes him into a game or two into the playoffs, doesn't go all the way, but takes him in there, what happens next year? Are you defining, is Mike Zimmer defining a starter in the offseason, going through all the offseason and OTAs and stuff? Or is it we have an open quarterback competition?
Well, here's the problem. Both of them are their contracts are going to be open. Right. So it's not just up to the Vikings.
Right.
And I think both of them are going to be offered starter money somewhere, if not in Minnesota. So the question then becomes, do you play it out and see which one can we afford? Because I don't think you can bring them both back in the off-season money that they're both going to get. And there are going to be some people that are still, very hesitant about Bridgewater. But again, he was a first-round pick for a reason.
Yes, he was.
He did lead them to the playoffs in 2015. Although the big knock against him that year was could he push the ball down the field. And that's what you're seeing with Case.
You're seeing Case too. You're getting that actual production out of him. It's going to be a really, it's something, as I said, it's a decent problem to have in the offseason.
We'll talk about this a lot in March.
They have a little more to take care of now during the regular season.
But the question then becomes, how much do you believe in this team as it's presently constructed?
Well, listen, because of the way the weapons, who would have thought you'd been saying Diggs and Thielen are maybe the best wide receiving combo in the game?
Since Moss and Carter.
You got Rudolph back as a big time, I think he got his 8th touchdown.
Yep.
So back as a monster red zone threat
and
again.
And did a horrible icky shuffle, by the way.
And listen,
bad.
But Friday he was going to be deactivated for this game. He was doubtful for this game with the ankle, had the high ankle issue, ends up playing. The O-line, we saw some effects last week when they were missing a few guys. They got a couple back, and it certainly played a lot better. And then because you had the defense you had, you're going to be in every game.
This team is really good.
They're when you talk
really
about,
good.
When you talk about balanced, are they the most balanced team in the NFC? Is it the Saints that are the most balanced team in the NFC? The Rams, the Eagles, you may not say it now because that defense is looking a little bit shaky in Philadelphia.
Well, it's interesting. Up until last week's game against Minnesota, against Carolina rather, the Vikings were the only team that had a top five offense and top 5 defense. So they sort of fallen out of that as they're top 8 in offense now, but they are the second best defense behind Denver. So they have a lot of balance. And they are playing for something that's never happened before. Super Bowl is in Minnesota, and the idea that they could just play their games if somehow they can get home field advantage, if the Eagles tend to stumble down the stretch. But they're going to get, because they've already beaten the Rams, they're in real good position to get the 2 seed and have at least one home game, then maybe travel somewhere else, and then figure out what happens. They're playing for something that's never happened, to play a Super Bowl in their home stadium. Again, a lot to get to that, but there's a lot of things that you just like about this team.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. Make sure to subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, and to listen every weekday morning at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and the ESPN app.